Hello, my name is Matthew Chan.
And I'm Wes Weaver.
And we welcome you to our newest episode of the TurnKey Investor Show. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into the subject. I mean, we need to get past the introductions. If you want to know more about us, you can see us in our earlier videos. So anyway, today's topic that we're going to talk about on our show has to do with marketing. And Wes, in preparation for the show, one of the things that I had noted in thinking about it is that the way we market has changed in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. You know, what started out back in 2000, 2001 that I had set up, it's still there, but it's also evolved quite a bit to what's happened today.
And that's important. I mean, you've got to be willing to change. You may start on one thing and it may work a little bit, and through small changes you find out what works better. And I think this is a great topic because with marketing, I don't care what business you're in, everything is selling. You're either selling yourself or you're selling a product. And
absolutely.
If you can't market, you can have the best product and you'll sink.
That's right.
Your business will just tank. Or you can have a terrible product with great marketing, and you can make a lot of money. So marketing, I think, is a very hot topic. It's very important.
Yes, and I'm glad you like the topic, and obviously you're very passionate about it because
it's very important. Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, you live and die by the marketing.
You do.
I mean, the properties are important, the management is important, but the marketing, without the marketing, all the other work you've done, I mean, you'll bleed to death.
Right.
I mean, you'll die.
And if we're talking real estate specific, I mean, you can have a beautiful house, beautiful paint, but if you don't get anybody to the house, then what good does it do you? You've got to get people to the house.
So we're going to switch gears on this show, and we're going to stay away from the left brain stuff, and we're going to go to the right brain. So we're talking about marketing. So I want to set this thing up, Wes. Now, in the beginning, obviously, when I came in here, I kind of had a vision, and the vision was I wanted to do lease options in Columbus, Georgia. I felt like that it was something that I could own. It was small. I had done the research. Nobody was really specializing in it. Mm-hmm. And so I set up a website called ownerfinancehomes.com, which exists to this day. Mm-hmm. But for you viewers, the ownerfinancehomes.com has evolved quite a bit over the years. It was actually, an ugly little website, few pages, and actually it's still kind of ugly.
I wasn't going to say it.
It's still an ugly website, but it gets found. It's tremendous.
It's functional.
It's functional.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
But at the time, I thought it was very, very important. And the school of thought at that time was that our type of people, wouldn't go to websites. And you know what? Also said, well, people aren't going to go to websites, and they're always going to look at a newspaper.
Right.
But my thinking was that it wasn't so much for the here and now. I felt like that we had to train the community to get used to us.
Right, and it worked. I mean, we had other investors who said, they hand out applications, or they just spoon feed, their customers, and we really just drove everybody to our website. We let the website do a lot of the work for us. And it was something, and everybody can't do it. There were probably a small part of the market that they just couldn't get to the internet, whether through a public library or a friend or whatnot. And we were okay with just losing those people. It was a cost of doing business that we were okay with.
Well, the thing about it is, we didn't have a public office.
Right.
I mean, we did not have a public office, and we had to find out a way to offload. I mean, it was just impractical, as you said, to keep driving to these properties and meet them one-on-one and give out applications. So we had to kind of force them into a little funnel. And as a matter of fact, what we did was we also had an information hotline, if you recall.
Yeah.
We still have
it.
it.
Yeah.
And what we try to do is basically let them get a feel for how we operate and get the information before they start talking to us. As you know, you still get a lot of phone calls.
Yeah,
and they can wear you out.
A ton of calls. But if you have multiple properties, you're going to be repeating the same information time and time again. So we have a hotline that they can call that just reads off the houses that we have. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, how much a month, and that's basically all they need to know before they call me and ask them any other questions.
Yeah. Well, I have to give you credit, Wes. I'm telling you, I don't know how you do it to this very day. I mean, I said it for years and years. I said one day he's going to burn out. Yeah. But he would always want to volunteer to take on more calls.
Well,
and I was always trying to lighten him up a little bit.
I'm still from some school of thought that at some point people want to talk to a real person. At some point,
right.
And so I try to keep my ear to it, to where if you try to have everything automated to where they, get the information offline, they get the information off a hotline, they get their application offline, they fax it in, they don't talk to anybody. At some point they're going to have to talk to somebody. I know for me, like if I'm calling a mortgage company, sometimes I'll listen through all 18 options and I'm just hitting zero, get me to somebody, And so I try to at least, if they've done 1, 2, or 3 steps of getting some information, then I'm okay with talking to them, at some point. So.
Right. Well, my concern in the early years was that I didn't want a dead partner. I didn't want a burnt out partner.
Yeah.
I was just like, I knew what the phone calls were going to be like.
Yeah.
And I wanted to sort of protect you a little bit. Your career was starting and you had a lot of different things going on. And I just didn't want you to get cooked so early in the process.
Yeah. But, we're obviously very sensitive to vacancies too. So while we can sit back and let all of our marketing automation just run and run, vacancies are bleeding us dry at the same time. So, I like to kind of keep an ear, well, is the rent too high? Well, is the deposit too high? And sometimes without talking to people, you might not get some of that information. So, in your marketing, have some automation, but also, don't be too far removed. Be plugged in to where you can have your ear to the ground.
Well, this is why we have this show, because you see, Wes and I, even though we work together and we started the same place, over time we've had slightly different views, and I think it's interesting to contrast. I think it's very helpful for our audience members to contrast your point of view versus me, because see, from my point of view, not that I wanted vacancies or anything like that, but if you recall, real estate was never my full-time thing. If you recall, I was always working on internet projects, and so I was managing sort of 2 different things, so I was kind of protective of my time. And admittedly, sometimes I get a little less patient with the onslaught of calls. So but I definitely get what you're saying. That's the reason why, obviously, I didn't fight you too hard. If Wes wants to take the calls and just have his ring off the hook all the time, then so be it. Yeah. But I will say, sometimes you did notice when we did forget to put information hotline. You said, "Hey, why are all these calls coming?"
You get more and more calls. So
even you have your limits.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway. Wes, tell me about what you think about newspapers in the early days.
In the early days, newspapers, for better or for worse, I guess that was kind of all we knew. Or at least that was, a heavy part of what we knew. If you have a house, you run it out in the newspaper. That's just what people do.
That's
and
right.
So I remember getting bills for newspapers. Now it would have some other, advertising in there. But we were getting some $800, $900, a couple of them even $1,000 a month. Newspaper, bills, and I would just like cry when that bill came in. I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" But we did that for years, until finally we started looking at the penny saver newspapers in our town. It's the American Classified, and there are other. You have your own penny savers in your area, and we started kind of scaling back. And at the same time we started scaling back, is the same kind of time that the newspaper industry is just a dying breed. It's just a dying industry.
It is definitely a dying industry. And nobody ever wants to hear this. You see, I feel, and I could be wrong, Wes. You might have a better touch. But I think a lot of the people in the realtor community, they're very concerned that the newspaper will really die off.
Right.
And because some of them have not prepared themselves of how they're going to market when those newspapers go away.
And that's one thing we'll get into later in this video. Is we're gonna lay out for you, not just one strategy of marketing. Newspaper ads. You have a multi-layered, 5, 6, or 7 areas that you're going to be marketing in. So if newspapers die and go away, that leaves you 4 or 5 more. It doesn't leave you with 0. And I think a lot of people, they depend on that. And if that goes away, or if that gets too expensive where you can't afford it, then you're left dead in the water with no other plan.
Well, that's exactly it. That was something that I think you and I definitely understood. We hated. I don't think that's a strong word, but I think you and I really hated being dependent on somebody else. Being at the mercy of the newspapers. We had no controls over their rates. There was no negotiating power. Either you took it or left it. And I think we hated that.
Yes.
And I think you and I were very, very unified in saying, look, we're in this for the long term. We are going to train the community at large to go to ownerfinancehomes.com no matter what.
Yeah, and you also remember with your website, if you're able to build one, you can you can describe the house in, you know, unlimited amount of words or space or pictures.
That's a great point.
I mean, with a newspaper, you're paying
yes.
a big price for a very small. You either can only have 4 or 5 lines or so many words. They're going to charge you by the word or by the line,
right.
And so you're paying a big price for limited space. Versus if you can get them into your system, whether that's a hotline or a website, you know, you can really expand on your marketing and your advertising.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I totally forgot about that. But yes, on your website, you do have unlimited space. Yeah. Now, there was a certain amount of investment in time and even upgrade of software on my end, but there was no hesitation because I knew we were going to be in this thing for years and years, and I knew, you know, obviously, I knew what advertising rates were. So whatever I paid for into the website, I knew it was pretty much a one-time cost that would be, you would just continue to reap the benefits going forward.
Yeah. So really, to fast forward this today before we move on to some other topics, or right now, our newspaper ads, or at least in our major newspaper, is zero. We have zero bills coming in.
Yeah.
You know, and we're still able to move houses, and so we have transitioned completely, 100% away from the major newspaper here in our town.
And you know, this is a terrible thing to say, but in many ways, I'm kind of hoping our local paper will go away because that really stacks the market in our favor because we have such a strong online presence.
Right.
And like I said, I don't want to beat on the point to death because you know we have a limited time. But you know, one of the things we've sold not only the brand, but you know, we've made it Google optimized, but we also put our pictures on there. They know who we are. Right. For better or for worse, they know who we're dealing with. So. But that's true. Yeah, we have gotten rid of newspapers, but we still use the American Classifieds.
Yeah, if we have several vacancies, maybe more than 2 or 3, we will still use the American Classified. Because it's cheap. They still get great circulation in our area. Yes. And we feel like we're getting a lot of bang for our buck. Right. We just felt like with the big papers, we weren't getting our money's worth, so to speak. Well,
the nice thing about the American Classifieds or the penny savers is people pick up that paper specifically for the advertising.
They do. Yeah.
I mean, there's no confusion of what you're buying that paper for. You're not getting to be informed.
Most of them, they're free.
Exactly.
People just walk by and just pick them up, Walmart or wherever. Exactly. They're free for the readers.
And you really do, like you said, there's a lot of bang for the buck there. Yeah. But anyway, there's another one that I know you're really passionate about is good old-fashioned signs.
Yep, good old-fashioned signs. We've used signs, and what we do is we like to customize a sign to, or when I say customize, I mean it has our website on it, it has our phone number on it, and it has, obviously who we are and what we do. It doesn't just say for rent and then we, black market in a phone number. I mean, they're very professional, and when people see them around town, they recognize our signs. Or sometimes I'll tell someone, well, I'm with ownerfinancehomes.com. And they'll say, oh, I see your signs around town. They'll start to recognize that. So you can use these signs to kind of build your brand in your area. Yeah. Yeah, they're great.
Well, but the signs that we use, they're not the traditional expensive metal-plated, realtor-plated. Because if you did, you'd go cry because most of our signs get robbed.
Yeah, these are chloroplast signs. I think they're 18 by 36, chloroplast. And we just get them printed on one side. And I can't give you a price because we buy them usually like 100 at a time, but they're very reasonable and they'll last you for a while. I mean, usually when we buy 100, even with the volume that we're doing, that stack of 100 will last me usually a year or more. Because obviously some of them get damaged, some of them get taken or stolen, or I'll forget to go and get them. But 100 will last you a very long time.
Well, the one thing I think you and I factored in is that there would be some theft. I mean, we kind of expected it. I mean, not that we encourage it or anything like that, but we just know just through natural attrition. Because the thing about it is, I mean, we're not like, if you're a realtor, we're not trying to offend anybody, but we don't just use one sign. I mean, we use like 2 signs, 3 signs perhaps on a property. We'll try to get them on different angles.
Right, or sometimes
we'll put them out on the street.
Yeah, sometimes we'll get aggressive and put them out on the main intersection, or we'll put them on the telephone poles, and of course the city will get them. They'll come by and take them away, and I just, it's a cost of doing business. I mean, if I got 100 eyeballs before the city came and got it, that was the cost of doing business, and I was perfectly fine with paying $3 for that sign, whatever it may cost me, for that, for those eyeballs. So,
And this is probably going to get me in trouble for saying this, but I'm telling you, this is why, I mean, I think the realtor mindset is very, very different. I mean, they want one sign, and they got to have direction. Everything is just so, the problem is, Well, I don't know. You go ahead.
And
you tell me.
Well, sometimes it's not the realtor. Sometimes they have to follow the rules of either the board, and the board gets obviously rules that come down from the city, and so they're a little more, I guess, scrutinized, so to speak.
Well, that is true.
To know, the right ordinances and things like that. But
having said that, you are a realtor and a broker, so you know what that line is, apparently.
But the houses that I'm doing are my personal houses that I own, so I'm fine with taking the risk or the fines or whatever you want to give me. I'll plaster signs, wherever I want to on my house.
Well, I mean, and to be fair, I mean, it's not like we're like crazy. I mean,
no.
But we do more than a singular sign in front of a house.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're great bang for the buck.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that we've adopted, along with the website, is we've incorporated photos. I mean, that was something we did earlier, but I found that we got a lot of feedback on our videos. Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing that's a little bit different from our videos versus the more polished is just either you or me. It's so unprofessional. We're just in front of it, and there's no production. There's very low production value, and we just go around zipping around the house and we improvise as we go.
Yeah,
surprisingly, people like it. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying. Before, in case we lost you, what Matt's talking about is when you go to our website, not just do you get photos, but but a virtual tour. A lot of people go at in a virtual tour. My understanding is nothing but a bunch of pictures stuck together, and you just get a slow, little thing that goes around the house, and then it'll come back this way, and it's kind of hard to get an idea of, depth perception and things like that. We do an actual video walking through saying, this is the bathroom, this is the kitchen, these are the cabinets that need to be painted, or this is the carpet, or whatever.
We'll give history of the property. We'll make informal comments.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of the walkthroughs. Yes, I know the version that you're talking about, where it's kind of computerized, but I've also seen where they're kind of faceless. There's nobody in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes if you're in a pinch, if you got nobody else to hold the camera, I certainly understand. But
we'll usually do them with Matt on video, and I'll walk through the house, and we'll take you from front to back, side to side, front yard, backyard, and so from there you can sit at your computer and say, I don't want to go look at that house, I like that house, or I don't like that one, and really can save yourself a lot of time.
And I will tell you, a lot of the people, they say they play the videos over and over. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, that's a reaction I would have never imagined. Yeah. But they tell me, they say, you know what, we played this thing over and over, We just wanted to get in and imagine the house and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's just something to think about on the videos. Now, Wes, I'm going to talk to something a little bit more softer. What do you think about reputation and credibility as part of the marketing? Do you think that has helped us out? I've been kind of a big believer in it. What do you think?
I definitely think it's important. Whether you're in a small town or a big town, your reputation, if you build any type of portfolio larger than 8 or 10 houses, then your reputation of either being a great landlord or a terrible landlord eventually will catch up to you. And I also believe, whether it catches up to you or not, I'm from the belief of thought that if you treat people right, then you will find your life and your business to kind of run smoothly. But if you don't, whether people know it or not, I just feel like the world will just be difficult for you. And so I think upholding a good reputation, it will serve you whether you're trying to save your face value or just in general. I know that's kind of a real woo-woo-ish big picture type thing, but being reputable and having a good reputation, that goes a long way.
And a lot of people have told us, and we've never solicited it, and we've tried to, off and on, we've ployed with giving awards and stuff. Mm-hmm. But people still, if they really like you, they still give referrals. They will say, hey, so and so said that you would do it, especially like on our Section 8 side. That you hear that a lot.
We do, yeah. You'll hear if you treat your tenants right, you will definitely have them refer other people, to your other houses. So. And most of the time, you don't even have to pay them anything. They'll just do it just because they like you. They want their friends to be with you.
Yeah, and one of the things, as I think it's kind of indirect marketing, is we're actually very responsive to our tenants, I think. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, sometimes we can't get somebody out there right away, but we usually pick up that phone call, even if it's off hours. Mm-hmm. And I think the people really like that we're acknowledging that.
Yeah, now, let me throw one thing is our tenants have our or both of ours personal cell phones for repairs and stuff. So we don't send repairs back into a website or back into a recording or anything like that. So
they don't go to a call service.
They don't go to a call. They come to our personal cell phones. So they get one of the owners of the property right away, and we can deal with it or tell them how we can handle the situation.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I'd like to share with all you viewers is that Wes and I made an agreement many years ago, and I think we still practice it, probably to a lesser degree, but we made an agreement that we would cover for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we didn't own it, because we just felt like that the greater good would be served.
Mm-hmm.
Since we already know each other's businesses, we had similar styles.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't our property, we would just kind of said, "Hey, look, if you need a favor,
mm-hmm.
Can you handle it?" And I think it's kind of worked out well.
So yeah, I'd recommend. I mean, if you're a one-man show, really, if you don't have a partner and you're beginning, to build your real estate portfolio, team up with another investor. Maybe someone that's kind of along the same lines as you. Maybe someone that has property around you, to where if you're doing an eviction where you need help pulling stuff out on the street, or you can't afford to, hire people, somebody may come and help you. You say, "Hey, look, come help me pull this dresser out on the street, and at your next eviction, I'll come and help you do it." And y'all team up.
It really helps, yes, when you can do favors for each other,
mm-hmm.
and it makes life a lot easier. Because the thing about it is, what people need to realize is the favors don't get called on too much. It's not too much, but it's not. But you can't go hire somebody for that one singular job too. It's very difficult unless you have a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a firm believer in doing favors if you can.
Yeah, and part of maybe the whole reason you're doing this is to either try to maybe cut back on your work, or at some point retire early, or things like that. So both Matt and I love to travel. So there's been several situations where Matt's taking a trip or I'm taking a trip. I mean, for the past 2 years, I've taken a month off in both sections, and you've taken, more than, a long period of time off. Yeah. So we're able to tell each other, "Hey, I'm leaving, can you watch my properties?" And then maybe properties that are, not even directly tied, to each other. But yeah.
Well, I remember specifically, it was fairly recent, I think. One of your properties, Martha was doing what she could to handle it, but it got to a point where she needed a little bit of help, and the hot water heater was out. So I kind of stepped in and said, "Hey, look, let's go shop for a water heater. Let's figure this out." And I just said, and once we determined the water heater, we said, "Okay, we need to get a payment." And I think it was your mom that paid. So it all got handled. But it didn't require a lot of time. It's just you just needed somebody that kind of knew the process. So it got handled, and there was no stress when you got back. The problem was solved. Yeah. And obviously it worked out really nice. Now, on another marketing front, I do want to talk about is Section 8. Now we've talked about Section 8 in our previous episodes. We've touched on it. The marketing is very different on Section 8. Now, Wes?
Different and free and easy and fast. That's
go ahead. Go for it. Let's share with our audience. What do you mean?
The last probably 4 to 6 vacancies that I've had, I paid 0 in marketing. I put 0 signs out. I put 0 ads in the newspapers. I didn't even put them. I don't even know if I put them up on our owner finance home site. I think maybe I did, but I put them on the Section 8 list. Rented them in less than 30 days, and they have their own website. Is the one in our area is actually, I'm surprised, is very good. You can upload photos. You put up the information, and I think I've said in previous videos, I'm moving more and more from the private sector over to Section 8. And when I know of a tenant that's moving out, like I just had one Section 8 tenant gave me notice, I went ahead and put it up on the Section 8 list because I knew it's going to take time. It takes a little time to find a tenant. Even if I find a tenant, it takes usually 10 days before they'll call me for an inspection. So while it was still occupied on Section 8, I put it up on the list, got a new tenant, signed her paperwork, she turned it in. So they're going to be calling me with an inspection about the same time that my old Section 8 tenant is moving out. So it's going to be a seamless, vacancy from one Section 8 tenant right to the other, and it's great. Okay.
And the reason why that's working is because the whole Section 8 program, they have pretty much forced, I guess the word, compelled all the clients, I guess they call them clients, to go on the website. It's not an option.
They forced it. You used to be able to go into the Section 8 office and they would give you this big, thick piece of paper and you'd flip through all of these houses, and now everything goes to a website, which works for us because we were already having to send people.
We were already on the web.
We were already
prepared for that. Right.
So when Section 8, started forcing everybody to their website, but now what I do on the Section 8 is a little nugget there that I slide in on the Section 8 website where you normally would put your name. I put
you put the website.
Yeah,
I know, and that's great.
So, because what I found out is that I get a lot of calls from people. I don't even know if I told you this, but I get a lot of calls from people who say, you know, hey, I saw your house on the social serve, whatever the website name is here.
Yeah, right.
And I say, well, are you on Section 8? They say, oh no, I was just searching online, but their website comes up in the search engines. Must be pretty high. I don't know exactly how people are searching, but so on the Section 8 list, I put our website, ownerfinancehomes.com. So I cross-feed them back over to us. So even if they're not Section 8, they still come to us.
Well, exactly. And it's still fundamentally the same philosophy. I mean, we keep training people. We keep reinforcing, go to our website. That's the first place. And so I think that's awesome that, you know, you're using the social serve, the Section 8 website, to drive the traffic to us.
Owner Finance, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, as on a side note, we did have a sister site. This was prior to social serve coming online, and when we realized that we had to go beyond doing lease options,
right?
And that's when we came up with solidrentalhomes.com. And so I was already putting in like search words along Section 8. So I know I've gotten some calls that made reference to that. But even when the people hit the Solid Rental Homes website, guess what? We still direct them to our home site, the Owner Finance Homes.
Right. And that's an important thing that you guys need to remember. If you start marketing, you say, well, if you say, I don't want to do rentals, I just want to do lease options. Well, that was working great for us in 2002 and 2003 when the market was hot, people had down payments. But as that kind of changed, we had a website called ownerfinancehomes.com that was mainly doing just rentals. So you can see how that was kind of like, well, it says ownerfinancehomes.com, but it's mainly just rentals. And so we built Solid Rental Homes to kind of mirror that, to let people know, hey, we basically can do it all. We'll do a straight rental, we'll do a lease to own, we can do Section 8, however you want to work it. If you're a good tenant, we'll find a program for you.
You know, one of the things that I was kind of thinking of as we were doing this program is if we had to go back in time and redesign everything, what would we have done differently, you think?
That's a good question. I mean, the lease options were great when they were working. I mean, we were getting some small down payments, so I think it was really, I mean, I shouldn't say it worked out perfect, but you know, when lease options were good, we were getting some down payments, we were doing them. And then when that market started getting slow, we changed to straight rentals, you know, and then but then as the market,
we balanced it. I mean, there were some people that still do want to lease up. I mean, it was kind of like it depended on the person.
Right.
We would try to adapt.
Yeah, we still offered it, you know, and then from there, as the market started as home value started coming down, rent rates started following them. So what we found was that some houses that we could rent for $650. All of a sudden now we had them sitting on the market for $595 and we still couldn't get a tenant in them.
Yeah, it was pretty dramatic.
Right, and it was at that point that we started looking at Section 8 because vacancies were really hard to fill. We were sitting on some vacancies 4, 5, 6 months, and then we found that with Section 8 sometimes the rent rates were somewhat protected than the private market.
Well, part of it, you talk about the extended vacancy. I mean, I accept responsibility for some of that because I had lost pulse of it. Now, I think you have a much better pulse on it nowadays than I do. I mean, early on, I think, obviously, I started first. I mean, I felt I had a pretty good pulse. But as time went, I think, obviously I wasn't quite as active. You were more on the streets than I was, so you obviously had a better feel. And quite honestly, I think we just lost touch. But otherwise, if we had known the market, we could have adjusted ourselves much faster.
Yeah, you've got to be willing to. I mean, if you've got a house that looks good, the paint and the carpet's good, and it smells good, and it's been sitting for more, I would say, than 2 to 3 months, then you've got to start looking at those rent rates. You've got to start looking. And let me just throw in, since we are talking about marketing, let me throw in one key thing that's very important. Never rent a house for $615 or something. And we've talked about this before, but we do the same thing that you do when you buy stuff on TV. If the rent's going to be in the low 600s, we usually stick it at $595. $595, $599. That is a marketing point. We're talking about marketing. That's very important.
That is true from a pricing point of view.
Pricing standpoint. I mean, you find these tiers that you're going to hit.
Absolutely.
I mean, yes, $625 is a legitimate tier. $650 is another one. If you get down to $610, just go to $595 and make it much more appealing to somebody.
Well, Wes, you have to keep in mind that some places, 650. I mean, you're living in the ghetto, depending on where they're from. Okay. If they're in California, I mean, you can't find a one-bedroom shack to live in.
So if you're at $1,000, if you say, well, I want to rent my apartment for $1,000 a month, rent it for $995. Okay,
right. Exactly.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Well, I do think that no matter where you're at. Now, like whether you're in California, which is very, very expensive, $1,000. There's something psychological from going from $999 to $1,000. I don't care where you're at. There's something about that $1,000 mark. Yes, there's, like you said, there's tiers. Like going from $595 to $625, that kind of thing. But I do think it's much more noticeable when you're going from like $995 to $1,000, or when you're crossing from like $1,995 to $2,000. Right. There are some tiers that are more significant than others.
Right. These tiers people are going to be sensitive to, because in their mind they've done their budget. They know what they can afford. So even though they can afford $595, $625, it's only $30 more, and you would think surely in their budget that doesn't matter, but in their mind they are really stuck to $600 or below. And so just be sensitive to, be sensitive to how sensitive they are to their, family budget.
Yeah, early on, I was always a little bit scared about moving. I hated lowering rents. I hated it, so I do it incrementally. But having gone through what we have with I'm much more aggressive in the cuts now.
Right.
Much more aggressive on the cuts, and not only am I more aggressive, I definitely just jump right into the tiers. Like I had one house on Goodwin Drive. I mean, that was a long one. I mean, that you want to talk about rents that dropped. But I tell you, the market had it in their mind it was going to be $800, and that was that. Just exactly like you said. I mean, they had it in their mind, and the minute I went into $795, boom.
Yeah,
dude,
multiple applications.
The applications were coming through like crazy.
Right. So that's what you're looking for. If you're not getting applications and the house looks good, then you're probably not priced right. So.
Exactly. And if you the key is you got to get below that certain tier.
Yeah.
And when you hit that spot, usually it responds well.
And do the math. And again, we're talking about marketing. Do the math. If you sit on a property and you say, gosh darn it, I want $900 a month, and you sit on that thing 6 months versus like Matt,
oh my God, I did that.
You come down to $795 to where it's $50 a month, and you sat for 6 months paying whatever your mortgage payment is.
It wasn't worth it.
It was not
worth it.
Find that tier. You want to be at the top of that threshold, and then boom, get them in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good, Wes. I think this was a pretty heated discussion, and well, maybe not heated, but at least a passionate discussion about marketing. And anyway, obviously, there's a lot more granularities to marketing, but we just figured it was a good topic to talk about for this episode and give you an idea how we look at it.
Yes, learn to market. If you don't market, you're dead in the water. Just remember
He's using his finger here. That's pretty serious.
Learn
that's pretty
serious.
It's not often he does this.
Yes.
So anyway, on behalf of Wes and myself, thank you for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you in our next episode. Thank you.